meeting to order. And Brad, you said you'd be the take the notes?
Yeah.
Okay. Jordan, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So declarations of conflict of interest. Anybody have any conflict with what we have on the agenda?
No.
Okay.
No,
sounds
no
good.
conflict.
All right. And I assume everybody has a copy of the minutes from the that says December 15th. I think you meant January 27th, right?
Yeah.
I think I did, yes.
Okay, so we'll just amend the agenda to that. And can we get a approval of the minutes, or do we need to review them in any way?
No.
I approve.
Okay, and I see Bernie's here, so Bernie, turn the chair over to you.
And maybe Bernie too, I was kind of trying to figure out a tech thing there for a second, but we might want to back up just to agenda for a second, because I think we want to pull some of the bottom stuff up to the top, if that's okay with everybody, and we'll do the updates at the end.
Sure.
Bernie, that's still what we want to do.
Okay.
So if we reapprove the agenda with B and C going first before A. And with the change of the minute number.
Okay.
Okay. So again, I'm a little confused. I didn't, for some reason, Katrina, you're coming across not real clear like others.
Okay.
So wasn't quite sure what you said there.
Sure. Am I still coming across murky? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll get just a second.
Yeah. Anyway, is Bernie taking over? Is that the plan? Okay, good.
Thanks, Phil. I just
Turn up your volume, Bernie.
Can you hear me now? Closer? Hello?
Yeah, it's a little better.
I see you like really close up then. Was there a mover for the minutes?
Yeah, I'm doing them.
No, did someone move to accept the minutes?
Oh, no, sorry. No, there hasn't.
Is there someone who would like to move to accept the minutes? Second.
I will
Yeah.
move to accept them. It's Jordan.
Jordan, okay, is there a seconder?
Okay.
Okay.
Any seconders? Brad?
Yeah, I think Phil did. Yeah.
Oh, okay, Phil,
Yeah.
second, so. Okay. So we're moving the section.
Bernie, we can hardly hear you.
Okay, let me see if I can change my speaker.
While he does that, can you guys hear me better now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great.
Can you hear me better now?
No, it's still real low.
Just use sign language.
How about, can you hear me now? How about now?
It's
Well,
getting a little better.
Just talk loud.
The system only gives me 3 choices, and I've tried all 3.
Okay, well, the best one I would say. Does that Brad and Phil, and Jordan, do you have like your own volume up as high as it will go?
Yes, and I can hear everybody else fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, so we can continue then, I suppose, with, are we ready to move on to the first item then.
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm playing with my volume.
Yeah, it's better.
That seems better.
Does that sound any better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll go with that. So we're, next item on the agenda is member changeover. We've had the unfortunate news of accepting 3 resignations to council. We knew Brad, this evening is your last meeting. Brad is leaving for greener pastures in Ontario.
One more meeting, I guess, actually. which-
Yeah, I can do March. Yeah.
I think you're on mute, Katrina, if you're saying something.
No, I can hear her.
No, I can hear her as well.
Can you hear me now, Bernie?
Okay, well, I'm going to leave and I'm going to let Phil keep sharing. That's ridiculous.
So you can't hear me? No, I think not.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah.
Bernie, can you?
Oh,
I can hear you fine now.
okay, now I can hear you fine as well.
And
Okay,
and
Okay,
everybody
good.
else can, because I went and got headphones so that because you couldn't hear me before, but then Bernie, you could hear me with the headphones. So,
I'm just playing around with configuration of audio and speakers, and this seems to be okay.
okay, I think we're good.
So sorry, I didn't hear what you were saying, Katrina.
Oh, I was just saying that Brad had one more meeting, which is helpful with some of the things we were
Okay, okay.
discussing earlier.
So, thank you for correcting. So we have one more meeting with Brad. We did accept the resignation for Sheena Matthews and also for Megan Adams. They were leaving immediately. So Katrina and I were having a discussion. We thought maybe if Brad was leaving after tonight, we would not have quorum to continue as a council. But we still have another month now with Brad. Thank you, Brad. To have a discussion going forward with the number of councillors that we have. There is a process because we are an entity not onto ourselves. We have a relationship with the city, being the Charlottetown Food Council, and we provide, I guess, consulting to the city. So they have a process whereby we have to follow in regards to renewing or appointing council members to this council. Trina's looking into it. I think she might have some information for us this evening regarding that.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, and so we'll touch on that in a bit. Well, actually, we can go right into that because that's the subject. So, Katrina, do you want to inform the council?
Sure. So it's a bit unfortunate. The processes behind all of this are a little bit murky with the city and often a touch complicated. But there is a clause within the terms of reference where an interim member can be appointed to fill the spot of somebody who has left a vacancy. And we can just review the applicants that we received the last time that there was a call, and then choose from those applicants and put them forward to council to replace the lost members, and they would only be fulfilling like the remainder of the term. And then if they wanted to stay on for another term when the term was up, then they would have that option. So we'll be able to pursue that. I'll have to go back and review the applications and sort of see if there's anybody suitable, but we'll probably go forward in that way with Brad having one more month with us. It gives us almost 2 months to kind of do that process, which should be enough time, which means that we won't have that interruption where we don't have sufficient members of the council. So that's very good news. But we will try and push it through quickly as well, because there may be there's an election coming up in the fall, so there might be like a little bit of stickiness, just in terms of we don't want to start edging too close to what may end up being. We're not sure what the policies are around like moratoriums of appointing people in a certain window around that election. So anyway, we'll get that moving quickly and sort of try and fill some of those empty spaces. We may not fill all of them. We only are required to sit at 6 and the maximum of 8. So we'll see how many suitable applicants there were to fill some of those spaces from there.
So, thank you, Katrina. So as we get more information as to the policy on the process for that, Brad, his term of office would end this summer. So we could theoretically have someone replace him to finish or complete his term. And then come the fall, we would have a nomination, or however the process is with the council, where we could fill in 3 or only 1 or 2 of those positions. And then we would have members starting at the same time. We still have to have a look at, we have an attrition rate we're staggered. So when not all councillors leave at the same time, so we'll have to look at that to make sure that not everybody leaves all at once. But we can function with a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 8. So something council, I think that part council can decide as to how many to see. Again, we still have to wait the authorization from the city on who can.
We're losing you again, Bernie. You got to talk louder.
Okay. So we still have a quorum for the next meeting. What I wanted to do, and this is going to be, we're mixing around the agenda here because it seems like our council has to kind of readjust, re-energize itself. And I wanted to take a few minutes, or as long as it takes, to have a check-in with council. Members who are here now, and even Brad, as you are leaving, just to share amongst ourselves how we're feeling about the council. How are we feeling right now? Because we've just gone through a pandemic. Life is very stressful. Just do this type of work here on council. Every one of us here is busy doing multiple things in our community, in our private lives. So I just wanted to do a check-in with everybody. If we okay with that? Just get a pulse on how people are doing. Any volunteers to start us off? I'll go.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm not saying check-in is rather vague. I'm not really sure what you're asking for.
Yeah, it's what you feel like sharing. So the council, I've been with the council since its inception, and we've had some very different people come and go in the council. We've done some really good work within the council. I'm feeling a bit, we are maybe sometimes too structured. I know just showing up at a meeting and doing chairing, it's easy. It's a standard format if you understand Robert's rules, but there's more to it than just chairing for me. It's being involved in activities and projects, leaving the council, working on things, coming back to council, seeing some progression. With that, it's hard to do that with the pandemic. I'm working from home now with various employers. They're always busy. Kids have to stay home because they've constantly been, what do you call them with the COVID close contacts? So they're at home for 4 days. They go to school for 1 day. They're back at home for 4 days because of a close contact. That's happened repetitively. I'm feeling a bit worn down. I still want to participate in the council. I think going forward, I'm trying to identify more how the council, how we fit within the council and the city. There's a lot of structures within the city that if we were a not-for-profit, we'd all get together and say, hey, let's do this, and we're going to write this bylaw. Go ahead with doing activities. there are a lot of, I don't know if I can call them constraints, but there's a lot of levels with the city, and some things that we decide to do, and it'll come back, because Katrina can't know every bylaw and every terms of reference, although she, 110%, she does usually. But when we don't, then that delays some of the things we want to do. Sometimes it's things that it's a project we want to do. We're not sure, well, does that fit in with working within the city? So I'm feeling a bit vague or a little lost in that, knowing what we really can do and cannot do. So for my part, that's something that I think I'm going to try and get more knowledge on to assist us when we're meeting. Obviously, when you're a part of a committee or a council or a board, you want to see things moving. We've had ups and downs. Sometimes we get things done fairly quickly and we move on to other projects. A couple of years ago, we'd meet and we had a lot of projects, a lot of themes we were talking about. Come back and we keep talking about all these themes and projects, and it would go on for months, and not everything would get done. And it feels a bit now too, we're doing the same thing. We've specified, so we're not working on a lot of themes, we're working on specific items, but we keep those items for a long time as we're working on them, and we don't come up with new items to work with. We're a small council, so we can't do everything. And this is not a criticism; it's more of a observation. We can only do what we can do. That's just how I'm feeling. It's like, well, we have all these projects we want to do, and we don't always get them done, or we don't get them done very quickly. Maybe more when we do identify something, we have timelines and actions on them. So all that said, feeling a little worn out, but still want to participate in this council, because I think we potentially can do a lot of great work. I like the people on this council. It's a pleasant time when I do come to these meetings. Yeah, so that's my check-in. Someone
Bernie,
can
thank
share
you.
their-
Yeah, I'll go next. Yeah, Bernie, that's a lot of how I feel. I feel like, well, I definitely feel worn down. Like, this is like such a tough time of year, so take it all with a grain of salt.
right.
But like, I feel quite differently in a couple of months, I think. But I'm the same. I really enjoy being on the council. I think it's a really interesting and dynamic group of people with a lot to offer. I think for me, I think it would help if there were more clarity for me around like whether we are kind of an advisory council or whether we are kind of the doers of the work as well. Because I think that like I would see our role as more advisory council, only because I think you're right. I think that I think anyone with sort of experience in the food industry is also going to be very busy. And so like if there were like if we were able to sort of advise the staff at the city on what to do, and we could sort of leverage some of their resources to actually enact some of that stuff, like that, like some of those projects, or at least some time, some of their time, that might be more helpful. And I also agree with, I do feel constrained by this being about Charlottetown and being about food, because I think that in Charlottetown, I think there is a lot of food insecurity. So I think that, that is really appropriate. But in terms of where food is grown and where the actual food resources are on the island, I think that, it's really outside of Charlottetown. And so sometimes I think about the scope and the kind of the narrowness of just focusing on the city of Charlottetown when it comes to an issue as broad and overarching as food.
Great points, Jordan. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'll go next. I've actually enjoyed the pandemic. I feel like I'm getting a lot more done. Don't feel obligated to go to events that I don't really want to go to. Anyway, no, I guess I've been really fortunate in that being an urban farmer and a manager of a building, I pretty well work either outdoors or on my own anyway. So the restrictions haven't really affected me much at all. I guess I'd pick up on something Jordan said there about in terms of being advisory or doer. I guess you know I would like to see us being more doers, or if not doers, coming up with projects for which we can then hire a third-party contract person to implement some things rather than just being kind of distant advisors to council. Because I mean, I don't know about you, Bernie, if, as chair, if you've met with council, but certainly as a council member, I've never met with them. So, you know, our mission is local food security, and I guess, you know, I wonder how much we've really enhanced local food security. And I think we've done a few things to raise awareness, but if we were to say, and I don't know by what metric we would use to measure what kind of impact we've had on enhancing local food security, but you know, I'm interested in possibly seeing more community gardens in Charlottetown, and I'll talk about that later in the agenda. I'd like to see some kind of campaign that really encourages and recognizes local food being used in restaurants and stores in Charlottetown. For years, Nancy and I ran the Taste Our Island Award through the ADAPT Council. Now that the ADAPT Council no longer exists, that award no longer happens. But maybe something similar to that in terms of Taste Our City, you know, and promoting restaurants in Charlottetown that are using as much local food and local products as possible. And maybe having some kind of local food festival. I know that there's lots of festivals already. Maybe we don't have to create another one, but maybe we could somehow glom onto them and make sure that food that's being served at festivals in the city are using local foods. So those are kind of things that I'd like to see in terms of doing more than just saying, yeah, you know, I think everybody already gets it that local food and food security are important issues. So I think we have to go beyond just strengthening that message by actually doing some things to enhance it.
Thank you for those thoughts, Phil. Brad and or Katrina? And if you don't want to share, that's fine as well.
I think you're muted, Brad.
Yes, I was. Sorry, I didn't want my typing to get in. Anyway, yeah, I think the last year with the whole like policy review, I think that was fruitful. Whether or not the actual outcomes from it are, you know, going to be used or anything like that, but I think that it helped to, you know, sort of define what we're doing from the advisory standpoint. Like projects and stuff are good, but like what Phil said, like, you know, maybe outsourcing the actual work to other bodies would, you know, I think, you know, ensure that there's outcomes that come from them, and, you know, it's not relying on the council to do that work. whereas we play more of that advisory role, the more of the guidance to ensure that the projects are completed. And I mean, like, you know, as a member, if you want to devote, you know, X amount of hours into it because you're passionate about that thing, that's for you to do. But like developing the projects and like, I think the council needs to be more in that sort of higher level role. And I think that's where the policy review really helped. It really let us kind of see things at that bigger picture, as opposed to getting into the weeds. But yeah, in terms of like promoting local food, I think that's one of our biggest like items that we should be focusing on, is promoting local foods. And by local foods, I mean island, you know, island raised, like not, you know, within 100, because like if you're looking at within 100-kilometer radius or anything like that, then, you know, people in Borden, like they're closer to New Brunswick than they are to Charlottetown. And in order to get food from New Brunswick into PEI, you have to be federally regulated, which is, you know, that gets into a whole different thing. But like island raised, island grown, island produced, and having, you know, like promoting that aspect. Like with restaurants, yeah, it's great if a restaurant can do that, but you know, it's more expensive to source, you know, locally grown or raised product. Like I know with my business, like we don't get any island raised meat because we just don't have access to it. So we have to import all of our meat. It's produced on the island, you know, but doesn't necessarily mean that it's really supporting the larger island environment. But then again, we're the Charlottetown Food Council, so like where do our borders sort of end with promoting that aspect? I don't know. It's just, yeah, confusing. Like when I first joined, we were talking about having the conversation of defining what local food is, and that kind of got pushed aside because it's a very hard definition to pinpoint. But yeah, the food insecurity aspect, I mean, there's been, you know, a lot of like the community fridge has really helped with that. And, you know, it's like promoting those various projects. But yeah, I think more of the advisory role, more of, you know, thinking of the bigger picture, and then helping to develop those projects with other parties, just to alleviate some of the work from the actual council members, because, you know, we're only supposed to do 4 hours a month or whatever. So it's, you know, and then if you want to volunteer your time extra, then that's your prerogative. But yeah, keeping it high level, I think, will help with like the stress levels of people, you know, especially when we're getting into the summer, and, you know, we're going to be more involved with, you know, because it's busy in the summer here. So
Hearing a lot of recurring themes.
Mhm.
Thanks, Brad. Yep. And Katrina, if you wanted to share.
Sure. Yeah, I can say a few things. I guess I thank everybody for everything that they've said. I think that everybody's made some really good points. And I think one of the things that's been highlighted is that it's been mentioned kind of across the board, that advisory versus the doing. And I think there's always been some conflicting opinions about that on council, and some uncertainty about it. And I think it is complicated, and even plays into that confusion around where this council sits with the city. And I think it's understandable in that like the advisory boards are quite new in general to the city, and I don't think any of them, there are many, and I don't think any of them have a overly great process for how they sort of relate to the city. And I will say that I think this council has done far more than many of those advisory boards have accomplished. but it is complicated. And I think I fully see, Phil, your point about doing, but also agree with what you said and what Brad echoed about potentially needing somebody else to take it on, and whether that be at the staff level or externally can kind of remain to be seen. But I guess from the staff perspective, the food is very dear to my heart. I really love that I get to work with all of you, and I love the model, and I think it could be really impactful. But I do share a lot of the observations and frustrations that many of you have expressed. It is a challenging profile to be responsible for, in that there is the lack of clarity all around on this, and sort of lack of guidance. I will say that I think that there are different models that we could look at. I do have some meetings scheduled with other municipalities just to talk about how things work for them. Some of them have kind of more solidified relationships with various organizations in the community where there is sort of like dedicated staff time for those organizations to put towards projects. And that doesn't mean that they don't have members of the community voluntarily on the council as well, but it just, I think, relieves some stress that way. And then there's also budget that's accessible through the city that we do have access to, that potentially could be used to hire a coordinator for projects, which we've done in the past. And I think that we sort of have yet to strike that balance, and hopefully we'll find it. I do think we've had this discussion as well in the past of where the council fits in that regard. And one of my responses has been that, you know, you're fully welcome to just put forward a recommendation to council, and that would suit your mandate. It's just that once you've done that, it's out of sort of your hands. So it's that striking of balance that you're comfortable with, of putting forward a recommendation that will be seen through by somebody. So whether it's including, sorry, I think Samara's just saying we should attend. Anyway, but anyway, just that balance of, you know, putting in that work beforehand so that it is more likely to kind of be endorsed by council, because I will say that staffing, especially up until the last couple of months, has been a pretty substantial barrier to things being taken up by the city as well. Like, staff are pretty overstretched as well. A little less so now. Our department has gained an extra position when I transitioned into this role, and someone came back from maternity leave. So that's really great. And I think that it does free up a little bit, where if there were recommendations put forward, you know, they could include something along the lines of whether it be handled by city staff or a project coordinator hired if there's no capacity. I certainly think it's an option. But yeah, no, I think we're kind of at a moment where some reconfiguring and rethinking is needed, and we can keep those lines of communication open. I would also say that I relate to the feelings of being worn out, certainly, which makes all of this even more challenging, and also resonated with what you said, Jordan, about probably feeling a whole lot better about everything a couple months from now, as we all have a little more sunshine and more. But yeah, I think that's mostly where I want to say, and just thank you all just for everything you shared, and just your presence as well.
Katrina, thank you for sharing. So the folks who just spoke, those are the only individuals I see on the WebEx council meeting. Is there someone on the phone?
No, I'm just going to go check that email that just came through from Samara, but I'm assuming it's saying she can't attend. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I forgot to reiterate when you got on the call. Sean had something come up with his pet right before the meeting, and so can't attend. Okay. And Samara also had something come up last minute, she's saying. So
make sure I wasn't excluding anybody. Okay. Well, I guess we're still all in the game. There's a lot of recurring things. It's just a little bump on the road, but it's an opportunity to revise what we're doing and work a little closer with each other. Again, there's a lot of things that I just heard there about advisory and we're going to have to try and strike a balance somewhere in there. Yeah. So Katrina mentioned she's looking at other models from food councils in other jurisdictions, other provinces. There may be some, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There may be something that exists out there that we'll be able to emulate here in PEI. Jordan mentioned, food. So we are called the Charlottetown Food Council, but a lot of our food is grown outside of Charlottetown. People who make the food, the producers, packaging, everything along those lines is a lot of it is done outside of Charlottetown. So how do we reconcile that with what we're doing as advisors to the city? Is our mission, like Phil mentioned, we're talking security.
Yeah,
So
if I
no, go ahead.
No, I had wanted to touch on that when I was talking too quickly as well, and I think it's a really important topic to bring up. And I think at times the council's felt constrained by that boundary, but I think I have too, and maybe been unable to sort of make some of those clarifications or to see them even. But I think urban food security, this food security of Charlottetown, really is the goal of the city corporation, but to accomplish that, we need really strong ties and a really healthy food environment that surrounds the city as well, which really, given where we live, encompasses the whole island. So I think as much as we can, I don't think they're ever going to go for projects that are solely outside the city, but where we can make those connections, those urban rural links, and that kind of thing, as long as we can make the case for why ultimately it benefits the city, I think that we can do that.
So in there lies potential action doer projects. Because I think anyway, somewhere's in there is, because what is bringing the knowledge of growing food or selling of the food to city donors. It's done here in the city. There's certain exceptions, obviously. 2 or 4 acres of urban gardens, that's not.
Hey, well, if I could jump in with the action doer suggestion, okay?
Yeah.
I brought up last meeting about community gardens and said I would investigate that a little bit further for this meeting. And I noticed on the Charlottetown website that it lists 3 community gardens in Charlottetown. One being the Legacy Garden, the other one being Des Brisets, which, by the way, I also had a instrumental role in getting that one started. It also mentioned one on Mount Edward Road, which I don't think still exists. Is that right, Katrina?
We're in a bit of a state of flux with who's sorry, dog. But I don't know. It's a colleague of mine that manages that site. I have never heard anything about that third one. I'm only familiar with Legacy Garden and Des Brisets, but we can look into whether it's operating. I don't know.
Yeah, I know when I first moved to the island, 20 some years ago, I had a garden plot on the Mount Edward Road Community Garden, but I don't think it still exists. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I did look into the number of community gardens that are in some other cities. And the 2 most astounding ones are, well, first off, Detroit, Michigan has, believe it or not, has 1,400 community gardens. And when Detroit went into severe economic decline, it made urban agriculture a primary driver for economic renewal and urban renewal. And the other city that has a tremendous number of gardens is is Portland, Oregon. So I looked at the population of those cities and the number of gardens that they have. And Portland has one community garden for every 2,500 people in the city. And Detroit has one community garden for every 500 people in the city. And so if we were to look at that and try to emulate that in Charlottetown, where latest census figure that I came up with showed about 80,000 people in Charlottetown, that's somewhere between 32 and 160 community gardens that we should have in Charlottetown. Right now we have two. Right now we have two.
Have you taken into account the size of those gardens at all? Just curious.
No,
Number.
I couldn't. I mean, I tried to find that information, but I couldn't. But even if they're postage stamp gardens, that would be great. You know, that would be something we account for. But right now we're recording two. So, you know, I think a case could be made for the increasing price that we see in food, and the desire for more local food and food security, et cetera, that maybe we could recommend to the city that they hire a community garden coordinator to try to get more community gardens established in the city. Not that the coordinator has to actually establish them, but that the community garden coordinator could be a resource person to identify places where community gardens could be established, you know, gauge the interest that there might be in those districts, and get something going. I know, like, you know, we've grown in the Legacy Garden to 200 community garden plots, and we still have more and more people that want to be there. And the other thing that I'll throw in, and maybe a bit of conflict of interest, but because I managed the Legacy Garden, is that the city doesn't contribute anything to it. You know, and we've got 200 community garden plots, probably 150 families in Charlottetown that are using the Legacy Garden, and we don't get any support from the city.
Phil,
Requested it, Phil? Oh, sorry, Brad, go ahead.
no, yeah, I'm just wondering, like, what the demographics of the people that are like getting these community garden plots. Is it like pretty random, or?
Well, the Legacy Garden has really grown with newcomers.
Okay.
I would say roughly 50% of the garden plots are newcomers.
Yeah.
Which is really kind of exciting as an aside, because they're growing all kinds of food that we wouldn't normally recognize as being crops, and it's like it's a bit of like the United Nations in the Legacy Garden. You know, it's kind of it really makes it fun to be there. When I was in the Mount Edward Road, it seemed like it was mostly, you know, senior citizens and established islanders that have been here for a long time that just didn't have a garden plot. And I don't know who's in Des Brisets anymore, but it's not a very big space, so I would assume it's just local residents there.
Yeah.
I think that's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to give actually a quick question, Phil, and then I want to give an update before we continue with this conversation from the city side. Have you formally requested support from the city for the garden, Phil, and been turned down?
Early on we did, and you know, through the grant programs that they have.
Right. Okay, maybe we can
and
talk.
I'll just wrap up. You know, I did find out that from two different sources, it seemed like 25% and others say 40% of population in North America, in terms of families, 25 to 40% of families garden to some extent. So there again is another reason why I think we should be encouraging more community gardens. And there's some really excellent resource guides online. I noticed that there's one out of New Brunswick called Wellness New Brunswick, Food Share in Toronto, the province of Alberta, and actually, surprisingly, the provinces of Newfoundland and Labrador all have really good manuals for starting community gardens.
That's good to know. I may reach out to you to send those links to me. Mind. And thank you for putting all of that together. I do just want to give a quick update on something related to community gardens before we continue with your proposal, Phil, to speak or to ask that council hire a garden coordinator. We did just, it came together really quickly, but in the last couple of weeks, put together a funding application in partnership with URSA, so Farmer Newcomers Association. And the basis of the funding would be to recruit from within their volunteer base what we sort of called like a community garden leadership team. And we would then hire a facilitator to guide them through the process of starting their own, like a new community garden. And then alongside that, we would also hire a consultant that would put together a framework for the city that would guide future partnerships. So that would actually clarify, because right now it's more complicated than it seems to start a new community garden. Like, we don't really know how to tell somebody to do it. It's not clear if somebody wanted to, what they should do. We do have an application process, but that's just like sort of starting point for somebody. There's a lot more that has to be sorted out. So anyway, don't know if we'll get that funding. We will know by the end of next month, but there is forward motion within the city to try and, like, that's on our radars, and at the staff level we want that. We also took kind of like a preview of that funding application to council, and they were really excited about it. So I just want to note that, in that if there are recommendations around community gardens that you want to put forward, from my perspective, it seems as though there is support from council for it. I would say that chances of a whole new position around community gardens is a long shot, but not one. I mean, you could still put the recommendation forward, certainly. And it might, maybe it's like a shoot for the stars and see where they land kind of thing. But yeah, just wanted to get that up.
I just wanted to say that, yeah, I mean, I think now is probably the time to ask about something like that. Like everything that Phil was saying, that's so true about demographic change, rising food prices, also just more and more people in Charlottetown living in condos and apartments, right, that don't have backyards. Like I think that that's a pretty compelling case for looking for funding for a position like that.
It sounds like a great project, and I'm just going to segue into food council focus areas. We're going to work our way backwards on this because that's a great starting point. One of the things I would see potentially would be, because we're just a small council, and maybe I heard wrong, but if there was a community garden coordinator hired, that would be hired by the city, not the council. That would be something that the council would be. We do the research, we develop a paper saying, hey, we need this because of particulars, and then they would hire someone, right?
Correct, I think.
You see it through the end. It wouldn't be the council hiring someone.
I think for something like that, no, I don't think it would be.
Yeah, because there's nobody here that works every week for council to be able to supervise it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. I like that. I like that idea. We did ask folks to bring ideas with them. So do we want to? I took some notes from Phil's idea, and we have them in the minutes. We might turn around and come back to that. Do we want to share more ideas now that we're on the idea?
I have an idea on the idea wagon. It just, again, it's inspired by what Phil said. You know, I think the idea of like sort of a local food festival is an interesting one. And I wonder if we could just, you know, simplify it by taking the model of, you know, what the the meat people and the meat and potatoes people have done, and just have like a week, like Winter Dine, where it's all local foods and restaurants, and they have a set menu using all foods from PEI.
Oh, that's a great idea. Local dine.
Yeah, local dine. Love it. Yeah, I think that's great. And it would just be, we would just take that existing model and just build on it, right? So it could be probably around, sorry, I'm just walking here. It could be like in October, or, there's lots of produce in season. Be part of, what's the festival in the fall that we have, Farm Day in the City.
Flavor.
Like it could be around, it could be right around that time.
Mm-hmm.
Does Winter Dine? Who's responsible for Winter Dine? Does anybody know?
Is that Thai pie? Is that the?
I'll Google it.
That's a great point, Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, who is it who does the local food stuff in the fall? Is it who organizes that? Anybody know? Phil, do you know?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your question.
Who organizes like that the local food festival in the fall?
You mean Fall Flavors?
Oh,
Yeah,
Fall
sorry,
Flavor
Fall
Festival is a provincial thing. Yeah.
And Winter Dine is downtown Charlottetown.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Um,
Probably provincial. I would think it would tie in better with the province.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be either. I think if it tied in with something provincial, that would be great. Or if it could be just targeted at Charlottetown restaurants too, and like it could be an interesting partnership with DCI.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and there again, I think if we were to pursue that suggestion, which I think we should, maybe again suggesting that the city hire a coordinator to encourage restaurants to get involved with that. It doesn't have to be any kind of full-time job. It could be it could be a part-time contract position that just makes sure that we get people involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it.
It could be a summer student.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and then
pretty
half their
simple.
wages are covered. Yeah.
It ties what we were saying about we come up with suggestions and work with other organizations that are doing things. Get things done, because we're not.
Yeah, I think that's the best use of our expertise and energy for sure.
And I think something like that idea about like a local dine type thing, like if you could get a partner on board, say DCI, for example, and they were willing to take on a lot of the coordination, then the Food Council could just be more that consulting body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Trina, do you know if the Food Council can apply for grants under terms of reference or bylaws that we?
I am not certain, but definitely yes. Like if you can't directly, we can put it just like through me in the city, and it would like on your kind of, we would put it in collaboration or whatever. I think it would be easiest to do it that way because of it would need to go through the city just in like the financial side of things, like the money would need to come to city accounts and stuff. But yeah, we can certainly apply for funding, definitely.
That's another area where one of my ideas was just applying for funding. And because we do have a small number, we have a budget, although small, we could as an entity apply for grants to have some of these, whatever ideas that we come up with, fund them, to ensure that they do get done. I'm not sure what the budget the city has in order to, hey, we're going to hire a coordinator for this and then a coordinator for that and a supervisor for this. They might shy away from that, but you're creating employment. However they decide or not, at least maybe we can raise some money. And I'd just be curious to see how we would be able to manage that as a council if city is applying on our behalf because we have ideas that we want to find. That, you know, restrictions and agreements and be interesting to know a bit more about that structure between us and the city.
Mhm.
Any other comments on ideas? And
Yeah, I like with regards to the like community gardens and, you know, sourcing local foods and stuff like that. Like I think there's also opportunities with regards to, because like I've been working in retail food for like 15 years, and it's surprising that the lack of knowledge people have with cooking, just being able to cook with raw ingredients. So I think if we're going to promote people buying local food that's been grown here, we can also dovetail that into having educational programs on how to cook for yourself, because a lot of people, I mean, you know, like a lot of younger people don't know how because their parents don't know how. And so, you know, if you can help people to be able to cook more efficiently and more effectively, it will help to promote them buying local, like raw ingredients, like carrots, onions, celery. You know, like people don't know what to do with these things because they've never been taught how to do it, because the majority of their diet is, you know, restaurants, fast food, and processed product like frozen pizzas and stuff like that, which is definitely not local nor healthy. So promoting the, you know, doing cooking workshops and tying in with the Culinary Institute, you know, like there's lots of ways to help promote buying local foods by teaching people how to cook. Mm-hmm.
I think again that highlights like potential partnerships that are
Yeah.
really interesting. I think we find, I mean, even in my own work, I find that partnerships are often the most effective way to do it. You get manpower from multiple organizations, you get different perspectives, you get all sorts of different networks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
we've been doing quite a bit of that, you know, prior to COVID at the
Yes,
farm
yeah.
center, right?
Mhm.
We had fermentation workshops. We've had one woman that was doing regular sourdough workshops, baking bread.
I did that one. I did some workshops there too.
Yeah, right.
Myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it might be something that if the council wanted to, again, coordinate, we could, you know, the kitchen at the farm center is a commercial kitchen.
Yeah.
And I believe I heard that the new library is going to have a kitchen in it too, isn't it?
Oh,
I'm
be
pretty,
nice.
I think it is.
yeah.
Don't quote me on that one, but I think it does. But if not, I mean, the farm center is available to do that kind of stuff now that things are starting to open up again.
Yeah. There's also the kitchen at Founders Hall too.
Oh,
Yeah. That, I think that's up and running now. It took them a long time to get it going. But yeah, I think it's, and then there's also, you know, like a kitchen you can rent in Stratford. I guess that's not really Charlottetown, but you know, yeah.
There's a lot of resources in the city to access kitchens to make these ideas come to fruition for sure.
Yeah, the hard thing right now is just COVID, right? Like you want to make sure everything's safe and, you know, following restrictions. Hard to do cooking workshops when we're wearing a mask the whole time, but
yeah.
You know, COVID's not going to be here forever, or wait until it becomes endemic and then we can go on with our lives.
Okay. These are great. These are great ideas. Any others that at my list? Ideas that you guys maybe wanted to share? There was I don't know if a Let's Talk 2.0 or community conversations again to try and get some information from the community as to how they're living this food insecurity. We all have our backgrounds and some history and experience with it, but maybe it's always nice to tap into the community to get some data as well. With COVID, hopefully, knock on wood, restrictions are being modified, that we will be able to do that again. That could be something we could add to our list of items.
Mm-hmm.
To our agenda, maybe at the end of an agenda, we could have on the agenda a theme. People are welcome to bring them in. Sometimes you don't put it on the agenda and you forget and you don't do it because the agenda's full and people don't want to say anything. But if we have something about new idea or theme, and then it might not be discussed that evening, but at least it won't get forgotten and people get to shout it out and it goes into the agenda parking lot and hopefully it gets put on. I'm just trying to think of creative ideas to keep the energy flowing, so it's not too restrictive. Yep.
Yeah, I think all great ideas. I guess my suggestion for right now would be to, if there's interest in pursuing some of those, to set some action items for people, whatever they may be interested in taking on.
So do we want to do this evening? But we've got some really interesting ideas here. Did we want to tackle that this evening or wait till next meeting when we have more? Samara, Sean hopefully will be here. Brad will be here again before he leaves.
I think next meeting when we have more folks to bounce ideas off of and hear some of their ideas as well.
Yeah, okay. Because at that point, we'll be able to maybe identify what we want to do, try and put some timelines to the actions to move it forward. And that can be a lengthy activity. You know, we're trying to be real about it, not just flipping about, yeah, no, I'll get that done in a week. And in reality, it may take a couple of months, several months. There's a bit of research to be had too when we have these ideas. Who do we need to speak to and so forth. If we're done with the activities for new food council focus areas, ideas, do we want to continue with the rest of the agenda?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I just want to clarify. So we're going to sort of table these ideas and we're going to talk about them next month.
Yeah, so they're in the minutes for this meeting and we'll present them as ideas for next council meeting.
Okay.
You guys, I have to hop off at 6:45. Do we still have quorum if I am not here?
Yeah, we started with quorum, so we're good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna hop off now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jordan.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So the asset map, Katrina said you didn't, there's not much to, I'll let you speak to it.
There's not much to update really. And this will be something to consider as we work to fill some spots on the council. I received a food council application from a student at UPEI who I think is studying nutrition. And at the time, we were not looking for a new council member, so I said that but offered that if she was interested in volunteering, that would be great. And so she's been really interested in the asset map. So she, I've kind of just set her off and running, and we're sort of due for a check-in. I'm not sure where she's at, but is providing some voluntary assistance to kind of doing some of the things we've been talking about for a while, like updating, adding new assets, that kind of thing. So, so that's just kind of where that's at. So
That could be potentially depending on the process with city, that could be a nominee to replace Brad.
yeah, I think she could be great, but we'll take a look at all the applications and have some discussions.
Okay, thank you. Greenhouse, I still have to put the research into a nice presentation format. Sean had done one with Brad, I guess, yeah, did one for their presentation. So I'm just going to try and emulate that with my data and have it ready for next council meeting. I did speak with Todd. He would be the bylaw officer, and the one thing he cautioned would be with the planning, city planning, to building. You have to respect certain heights and size and that's the crux of it. They're silent on certain items in the policy, so it just needs to be better laid out so there's references to these things. So when you're reading something, you know that you have to go to something else to make sure that they coincide and make sense. Because if you just read one part, you think you're good to go, and then you're not, because something else in another bylaw, sorry, not a policy, but bylaw, states that you too the wrong plastic. Okay, that's my report for that.
Sorry, you've been cutting in and out a bit, Bernie. I'm not sure what was the last thing you said.
Community gardens.
Yeah, that I can give a quick update. Basically, the update is the funding application that we put in that I mentioned previously. And then the other thing that we're doing, though, is that Samara is working with us on is putting together like a how-to video kind of that go along with the application. So we're getting some really massive feedback here. I'm just gonna mute everybody so you know that. So you know you're muted. But yeah, so I'm working with comms and one of my colleagues, Jessica, and Samara, to put together kind of a video on the process of working with the city to start a community garden, so that we can use it as a promotional tool. And we'll see. It's moving along slowly, and we would have some resources to put behind that as well if we were to get this funding. Yeah.
So that would be because we've started working on this. So we put it on the agenda for next council meeting as well, because that's still that's an ongoing project. We don't.
Yeah, we can put it on the agenda. I mean, I don't know. Actually, if all were to go well, we might know about the status of the funding application by the next meeting. We're supposed to know by the end of March, so I don't know how far they'll push that. You know, I mean, it could get extended. That happens all the time too, but who knows? Maybe in an ideal world. And then maybe, I don't know, we'll probably have some updates on Samara's project as well. I saw in her email to me that she has some updates, so I'll connect with her in the coming days about all of that. So yeah, we can put that on the agenda again.
And Trina, for the food waste, I think we're, Brad, I guess I'll let you speak.
Yeah, we're like more or less done with that. I'm not too sure what happened with the report that Sean developed up there, if that's been sent in or.
I think last that we talked, there were some changes that needed to be made by you guys, and I have not received anything.
Okay, I'll contact Sean then early next week and see what needs to be made there.
Yeah, I think just like a few things based on that conversation with Todd, and then we can, if you get it to me, we can get it sent back around to Todd, and then hopefully off to council and off this council's plate.
Yeah.
But
yeah, other than that, Sean and I, or like Sean, I guess more so than me, was looking to, get another project essentially, or like another, policy issue to deal with once the food waste stuff is kind of, wrapped up, or at least what we were wanting to do with it. So that, we can talk about that next meeting.
Thanks, Brad. If you do get something, Katrina, can you send a draft my way, whatever you get, just so I have something to work from?
Sure. And I can actually, I'll send you what Sean and Brad had already put together. There were some changes that needed to be made in terms of like the official recommendation based on Todd's
Oh,
advice,
yeah.
but the format is still
The
great.
format's
Like,
still the same.
yeah, so I can, do you have it or do you want me to send?
Can you send it?
Yeah, I can find it.
You can, if you can find it. If not, I can probably contact Sean and get it directly.
I have it.
Okay, well, I think we've finished the agenda. Maybe we'll go backwards on the agenda more often.
Good plan. Love
Just
it.
as
final-
just as an irrelevant but interesting aside on food waste, I read an article the other day that some university graduate student has taken, apparently there are bioluminescent enzymes in food waste, and he somehow processed them into turning them into solar panels that don't need
yeah, I saw
sunlight.
that.
Did you
Yeah,
read
I
that?
saw that. Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
need sunlight. Yeah. That's pretty
Google
weird
that
and
one.
amazing. Yeah.
Over Elon Musk. Wow,
Yeah. Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, there we go.
I'll have to Google that. That's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, and he was promoting it as an idea of, a solution to food waste.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Well, we're at 6:50. If there aren't any other comments or ideas to be shared, I'll have a motion to adjourn the council meeting.
Okay.
I'll put that forward. Yeah.
Okay, Brad. Okay.
Okay.
And I think Phil had a seconder there, so motion carried. We're adjourned.